Hey everybody, it's the 4th episode of UIO, the new podcast for teenage girls. Hugs to everyone and thank you for joining UIO, the podcast for teenage girls. It is for you and about you inside out. I am Sonja Lewis, your host. Today we're talking about body image, the perception that you have of your physical self and what you think and feel as a result of this perception. Sadly, we're all influenced to some degree by our obsessive culture with how we look, our size and shape in particular. With images everywhere, school, home, the media, promoting the perfect body, though there is no such thing, it is all too easy to get swept up into this storm. But there can be calm after the storm, through which we can recognize and care for and nurture our individual self. Here today to tell us how to do this is Laura Miles, my new personal trainer. Not only does Laura help others with issues of body image daily, she has up-close and personal experience with the subject. Some 13 years ago, having been obese as a teenager, Laura decided to overhaul her own lifestyle to lose weight, gain confidence, and get fit. Through eating nutritionally and adopting a high-intense exercise plan, Laura lost 5 stone, that's 70 pounds, and has never looked back. Always looking ahead, she enjoys helping others, which is why she has agreed to share her story. Her tips on UIO. Let's talk to her now. Welcome, Laura.
Hello.
So great to have you here. First of all, I want to be clear about what this podcast is about. It's about having a positive body image, loving yourself, owning your body, embracing your body, and what that actually means. Being the healthiest, happiest you that you can possibly be in your own space. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the importance of exercise and food to the body. And we've also talked about self-confidence and self-esteem, as well as skin during the podcast. And I'm so excited that this topic really brings them all together, touches upon all of them. I do think it's worth saying that it's not all doom and gloom out there when it comes to body image. There are countless perceptions out there about what is the perfect body, and you and I both know that there's no such thing. But things have moved, if only slightly, since I was a teenager, and I know that was a long time ago. But I think things are trying to go in a positive direction. Even models come in different shapes and sizes, though they look about 13 these days. And that's something that we're going to talk about a little bit later, too, because it's related to self-image, but it's more the sexualization of teenage girls. And we will get back to that. But back to the issue at hand, there is more campaigning collectively and individually about body image.
Yeah.
Uber celebrities like Victoria Beckham are willing to be counted on this topic. Earlier this year, Victoria wrote a letter to her younger self and admitted having body image problems when she was about 18. And she said something like, she would tell her younger self to learn to embrace your imperfections. That is what I want to tell you. I thought that was really good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I think this kind of thing can also lead to confusion, though. Sometimes acceptance can be misunderstood. And I want to know from your perspective as a personal trainer, but also a young woman who's dealt with body image problems. Can you offer your take on what embracing your body really mean?
Yes, I think that as women particularly, we are definitely still under a certain amount of pressure to look a certain way. And there's definitely a real movement for accepting us as our bodies as individuals, and trying not to model ourselves on one particular body type, right? So I think that's a really positive thing. You've got strong, not skinny now, which is a real kind of positive movement that women are pushing towards, which I think is really important. So I think particularly when young women need to understand that their bodies are all going to look a little bit different. That's the first thing I would say. So genetics have a huge part to play. You might be born with a body like Kate Moss. You might be born to have a body like J-Lo. You might be somewhere in between. Wherever your genetics are going to take you, to a certain extent, you have to embrace that, right?
Okay.
So I know that, I'm not built like Kate Moss.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that. But if you'd have had this conversation with me when I was 18, I might have felt a little bit differently about that. And it took me a long time to understand that you need to embrace what you're given and make the best of what you're given rather than trying to fight what you're given. Does that make sense? So it's making the best of what you can have and what you've got.
I think that's a good point. But I think one of the things that I get really concerned about is that some people might take embracing your body to mean that unhealthy lifestyles are to be embraced.
Yeah.
You said make the best of what you've got. So talk to us a little bit about accepting your imperfections, embracing your body, but yet becoming healthy and happy at the same time.
Absolutely. So what I think is important is the distinction between accepting your body shape and your body type, but also working towards having the healthiest body that you can have. Whilst we're not all going to be built like supermodels, I do think it's really important that we strive as hard as we can to be as healthy as we can. So normalising obesity is not okay. You know, understanding the difference between naturally being a curvier girl, that versus being very overweight and unhealthy, there's a big difference. You work with what you've got and you become, or hopefully work towards being the healthiest and strongest version of that.
Tell us what are some of the health hazards of obesity?
Well, I think the difference when you're a teenager and you're obese, you're not really thinking about it from a health perspective. So I know, having been very overweight when I was younger, I had absolutely no interest in what that could have done to my health on the longer term. It just didn't factor into my psyche. The only thing I used to, there was lots of things I used to think, but my main concerns at that time, so as a kind of 16-year-old who was very overweight, was that I couldn't shop in Topshop. And I couldn't shop in River Island because they didn't stock the clothes that would have fitted me. That was what mattered to me at that time. The health implications were not in my, weren't kind of prioritised at all in my mind. However, there are lots of implications.
Yes.
And
what would you say to your younger self now?
Good question. So things like high blood pressure, diabetes, higher risk of stroke, makes it harder to carry a child, makes it harder to conceive and carry a pregnancy. You know, if you're going through a pregnancy when you're very overweight, you're more likely to develop the onset of diabetes in pregnancy. There's so many dangers of being obese. And there's also, from a mental health perspective as well, from a psychological point of view, there's a whole load of other issues that it can bring on.
Well, let me ask you this, Laura. You talked a lot about the implications for the future.
Yeah.
And I think that might not be enough to motivate girls to change now.
Yeah.
So what about in the space that they're in as teenage girls? Is it okay to have high blood pressure? Is it okay to have all those things? Or what are the implications for them as teenage girls?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not okay on your body at any time. My point, I guess, was that as a teenage girl, you're not necessarily prioritising your health.
You don't think about it.
You don't. You're prioritising, like I said, like how it's going to affect, can I get a boyfriend? How's it going to affect what I can wear? How am I going to look if I try and dress the same with my friends who aren't overweight? Do you know what I mean?
This is a really valid point you make, because it leads to your second point about affecting your mental health.
Exactly.
So this affects your self-esteem,
Absolutely.
your confidence.
Yeah.
Your life is all around your weight.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think when you're a teenage girl and you're very overweight, in terms of your mental health and your self-esteem, you're going to have, potentially you'll be depressed, certainly, low mood, lack of self-confidence, lack of confidence in terms of maybe building friendships, finding boyfriends, so holding down relationships. You will already probably have some disordered behaviour around food that will possibly continue. So, for example, if you're already overweight and you turn to food for a comfort, the bigger you get, the more you're going to eat to try and make yourself feel better. So that's kind of a perpetuating cycle. And ultimately, you're putting your body under a very high, unnecessary level of strain.
Yeah.
Which is not a good place to be, whether you're 15 or 50.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. Reflecting upon your own experiences, which I think is what you were doing. How does your self-esteem relate to yourself?
So in terms of me now as I am, or when I was younger?
When you were younger and you were overweight.
Yeah.
And then after you lost the weight.
Yeah. So when I was younger and I was very overweight, I actually don't think I realised quite how seriously overweight I was. I was quite into fashion, so even though I couldn't necessarily dress exactly how my friends were dressing, I think I would find a way of dressing along those lines, and I was always wear, lots of makeup, make sure my hair looked nice. I had nice shoes, accessorize well, as you do when you're an overweight woman. You can't necessarily wear the clothes you'd want to wear, but my God, you've got a good pair of shoes on. You're carrying a decent bag, so I think I would always make the best of what I had. Was my self-esteem low? Probably, but I was also a confident girl because I had amazing family and did well at school, and I had lots of amazing friends, and so I had lots of positives. My weight didn't dominate my psyche as much as someone else's. It might someone else's. However, I must admit that the changes to my mindset as I started to lose the weight, I'll never forget. I'll never forget the absolute joy of being able to go into River Island. I use that as a good example. Yeah. Going into River Island and being able to buy a pair of trousers. I will never forget the joy in how that felt, because you're suddenly like, I can wear normal clothes.
Okay.
And that for me, it was one of my overriding memories of my kind of youth, and that was a real defining moment for me. And when friends start telling you that they can see the differences, that really helps.
Yeah.
Really, really helps. So my self-esteem definitely grew after I started losing the weight. And actually, if I'd held on to that weight into my 20s, into my 30s, I would imagine my self-esteem would be far lower than it was. But I was lucky that I made those changes when I did, I think.
Yeah, I think that leads to another question. And because you didn't necessarily see it yourself, so how does a girl know the signs of negative body image? Because you're walking around thinking, you pretty much normalized it, what we talked about. How does a teenage girl recognize that she has fallen into that space?
So I think it's things like not wanting to look in the mirror, not wanting to socialise, having really negative self-talk, thinking that you're, disgusting. I've had those thoughts about myself. You look in the mirror and you think, oh God, I look disgusting. That's a horrible place to be. It's a horrible way to talk about yourself, but it's a body image issue. Yeah. Because no one else is looking at you thinking that, but that's how you're seeing yourself. That's a real problem. So negative self-talk. I think inability to form new relationships, new friends. Okay. Not wanting to put yourself forward for things, anything where you might be in the spotlight, in the public eye. There's so many things. There's so many ways. But I think generally it's kind of being a bit mindful of how you're viewing yourself. Are you happy with what you see in the mirror? Yeah. That can be, it doesn't matter whether you're overweight, underweight, or in inverted commas normal. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Are you happy with what you're seeing? Yeah. Now, if you're happy with what you're seeing, then that's great. But if you're not, then you need to understand that there are, you're starting to maybe go down that road of having negative body image, and that's when you might want to look at making some changes.
And one of the things that you said early on was that you can't really compare yourself to other people, particularly people in the media, supermodels, Kate Moss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Naomi Campbell and people like that. What role does the media have, and how can you manage that? Yeah,
so particularly social media. I mean, I didn't have social media when I was an overweight teenager. Thank goodness. I didn't have that to worry about. Didn't have Instagram. Didn't have photoshopped pictures of celebrities and, friends even. There's so much you can do to filter your image now. It's actually scary. So I think girls who are younger need to really understand that there is a lot of nonsense on social media. Yeah. A lot of nonsense, a lot of clever positions of the body. Clever lighting. You can manipulate your body for a couple of days to make it look a certain way. There's so many ways you can fake tan. Yeah. There's Photoshop. There's many different filters on these apps that we use.
Yeah.
And it's rubbish.
And the point is you don't need to. It's
No,
all about
you don't need to.
your body.
Absolutely.
And loving yourself.
You don't
and
need to.
Yourself.
But if you're going to compare yourself to people, then you need to understand
that is what they're doing.
Yeah, you're possibly comparing yourself to an image which is nowhere near reality. Exactly.
No. And that's important, for people to look at if they're going for role models. You shouldn't compare, but if you're looking to role models, look at real people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your aunties and your sisters and your moms and people like that.
Absolutely.
Because you're not going to find those polished images.
No, absolutely.
Unless we go on social media and polish our image.
Yeah.
But which sort of leads to the whole idea of it's not easy. Keeping fit is hard work, Laura. Some people see it as an unnecessary struggle. They don't want to do it. They don't feel that they can really prioritize that.
Yeah.
I've seen that kind of comment on social media myself.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to turn myself inside out to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is not turning yourself inside out to look a certain way, but to be the strongest you that you can be, to be the healthiest you that you can be.
Absolutely.
So how do you get teenage girls and women to actually enjoy keeping fit? How can you overcome the struggle?
If I speak from my own experience to begin with, when I was a kid, I hated sport. Hated anything competitive, couldn't catch a ball, hated the idea of being part of a team because I always felt like I was letting the team down. I just could not bear it.
I can relate.
Yeah, couldn't bear it at all. And through secondary school, it was the same. Avoided PE like the plague, felt really awkward, especially as I was, getting bigger during secondary school. I hated anything which involved me having to move in front of other people. So my parents did sign me up to go to the gym when I was about 16, which was a nice attempt for them, I think, to try and get me into health and fitness. And they're really healthy and fit and healthy. So that was a really good attempt for them to try and get me into it. And actually, I didn't mind the gym because it was only about me and it wasn't about anyone else, and I wasn't having to be part of a team, and no one was really watching what I was doing, and I was just getting on with my own devices, and that was okay. But the real crux of it for me was finding something that I actually enjoyed and wanted to keep doing. And actually, that was running for me. And it wasn't going out and pounding the pavements. It was just getting on the treadmill and going from being able to run 5 minutes to run 8 minutes to 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden I was doing maybe 25 minutes intermittently.
Okay.
And I was like, do you know what? This is quite therapeutic, and by this time I'd started to lose the weight anyway.
Okay.
And then as I got, a little bit older, so moved through my kind of early 20s into my mid 20s, I actually got quite good at running. And I was like, do you know what? This is the first thing that I've ever felt that I'm any good at, and that I can actually run faster than quite a lot of people, within reason. Obviously, I was by no means an athlete, but I would do a 5k and I'd be overtaking people, and that was a real confidence boost, and that was probably the turning point for me. It was finding something that I really enjoyed.
Oh, that's important.
It's crucial. Now, later stages, when you get a bit stronger and a bit fitter, you might find that there's particular areas of your fitness that you need to work on, or areas of your body that need strengthening. And that might not be so fun, right? You might have a very weak core. So you might have to do you might have to do Pilates because you need to strengthen your core, for example. That might not be your great love, but you do it because it's overall it's going to give you a stronger body.
Yes.
But if you are somebody that's new to health and fitness, or that is very overweight, you have to initially, I believe, find something that you enjoy, and it really doesn't matter what. Get moving. Just do something, find something that you're going to stick to.
Yeah.
And we're all different, and we've all got different tastes. And like I said, as you get more confident, then you can maybe explore other avenues and try new things and get a bit more experimental with it. But initially, I really strongly believe that it's got to be something that you enjoy. I really do. And then that opens doors into other avenues, I believe.
Right, yeah. No, I think that's right, is being able to have something that you enjoy. and just keep doing it and stick to it.
Because if it feels like punishment, you are not going to do it.
No.
And I think the attitude with exercise is that you've got the people that fall into the camp where they feel like it's punishment.
Yes.
And then you've got the people that fall into the camp who have found something that they've got a bit of love for, that makes them feel good, that they don't dread. Yeah. And if you can try and find your way into that camp, you are in a much stronger position, in my opinion.
Yeah, I grumble a lot, as you know.
What?
You know? So I might be in that camp that, but it gives me something.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to feel better. I know that if I'm stressed, that exercise also releases stress.
Absolutely.
I know that if I'm weak in the core, if I'm weak, my legs are weak, or I'm having a hard time, with my running or something, because I love running as well, that it makes a difference. And so for me, it becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It becomes a part of my lifestyle.
It has to be.
It's a lifestyle choice.
It has to be.
And I found that that's the only way.
Yeah.
Because when I was sort of, dipping in and out of running, and I did that for years, I didn't really get anywhere with it. But it was only when I made it a part of my lifestyle that it actually makes a difference to me.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. If it's not part of your life, if you dip in and out of it, then you're never going to necessarily see the benefits that you would if it becomes part of your everyday life. I really passionately do believe that people need to understand the benefits of exercise. It's got so many benefits, but in terms of improving your self-esteem and your body image, it's really crucial. Really crucial.
Okay, that's really good. I want to ask you something. It was something that you said that leads me back to a question, and I want to move us on because we've got a couple of other things to talk about before we get out of here. But you talked about your parents being quite healthy and fit.
Yeah.
That led me to want to know, if your parents were healthy and fit, why weren't you healthy and fit?
That's a good question.
Because a lot of times what we find is people are not eating right.
Yeah.
It starts at home. They're not exercising. It starts at home. But that wasn't the case with you.
No, it wasn't the case. I think that when I was at primary school, I felt fat. I don't think I was, but I think I felt it. I remember when I was about 7, my mum buying me a dress, and I remember putting it on, looking in the mirror and saying, I look fat in it. I mean, I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
Which is heartbreaking. So I think there was an element of probably comfort eating, actually. Going through some tricky times, I guess, with friends, and going through the issues that you go through as a teenager. Possibly I turned to food for comfort, but to be honest with you, I've always had a very big appetite. I've always been able to eat a lot. Why it got as bad as it did, I'm not sure, but certainly my role models were very fit and healthy. Yeah. And so I think there was probably an element of me certainly eating the wrong stuff outside of the home. It wasn't at home. It was going to school on no breakfast. Yeah. And then at break time, eating my packed lunch that I'd taken to school. And then at lunchtime, going into the canteen and buying chips and a burger. Yeah. And then on the way home from school, I'd go stop in at a friend's house and we'd fry up. We'd make a fry up basically, or we'd just cook junk, every day, and we'd do that. Then I'd walk home really slowly, and then I'd have a massive dinner, and then I'd probably take a chocolate bar up to bed. That was literally what I used to. I remember it. Yeah. We would eat a very well-rounded, healthy diet at home. It was definitely more the things I was doing outside of, and I just didn't realise the implications. Yeah,
and this is just reiterates that we do develop values outside of the home as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
We get things from the home, but we don't live in a vacuum. We live in the world. And so we just have to be conscious of that. And I just wanted to raise that point so that, the girls could hear that. Well, before we get out of here, let's talk about the sexualization of girls. Because this is one of the issues that has been a driving factor for me to do this podcast, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
There are probably many aspects of this issue when it comes to body image, but I want to look at 2. And the first one is the aspect where girls are showing off their bodies, sometimes inappropriately, let's say in a sexual manner. And I think partly it must feel liberating, to be able to, I've got a nice body, to show off my body. And I think on some level, people ought to be able to wear what they want. But we need to be realistic and safe, and we need to have a part to play in breaking down the stereotypes. I remember a few years ago, my husband and I were in Miami, and we were in town, not at the beach, and there were these beautiful teenage girls strolling around the town. They had on these lace see-through trousers and no underwear. I couldn't believe that. And I looked into their faces, and they were babies. They were girls. And I thought, they have bought into this sexualization. They're helping to normalize it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I just wanted to go up to them and just hug them and just explain that this is not a good thing.
Yeah.
So what is your take on this? How can teenage girls be proud of their bodies without feeding into this sexualization, this normalization of sexualization?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a difficult one. It's such a big topic. I mean, you don't have to show your body off to be proud of it. That's for sure. And I think that there's a real discrepancy sometimes between thinking that you do need to do that and you need to wear as little as possible if you're happy with your body. Sometimes I feel like the people that show their body off the most are the people that are the least happy with it. And I think a real show of confidence is actually not showing it, not parading around with everything, you know, with everything hanging out. Sorry to use that.
Well, but it's true.
But, you know, you don't have to do that.
No. And it really leads to the second aspect, which is about the difference in appearance and showing your body off. What I just talked about, I don't think that was appearance. I think that's not...
No.
It was inappropriate.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, you want to wear a mini skirt. You want to wear the latest fashion. I remember when I was in university and I had on a pair of shorts, and they were probably red shorts, and I was strolling across the campus, and there was nothing wrong with them. They were decent. But this young man proceeded to call me a little red Corvette. And that was definitely at the time when Prince had his little song out, Little Red Corvette, about a fast girl.
Yeah.
And I was nowhere near that.
Yeah.
I hope that there's a healthy balance.
Definitely.
I definitely do not want to give up mini skirts, even at my age.
No, absolutely.
I don't see why you can't wear a nice, you know, off-the-shoulder dress. Or the difference is when things become...
obscene.
Yeah, when they become obscene and it's perceived as it's okay.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody's doing. It's a normal part
And I also think there's
bodies.
a danger that when a girl will decide to go down that road to improve how they feel about themselves because they think that they're going to get more attention, that's where it's dangerous.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it doesn't. It works...
the opposite way.
Quite the opposite way and everything. The perception is not good.
Yeah.
And deep down inside, we're all just little girls, and it's perceived as something completely different.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, tell me, we're coming to the end now. What are some tips for maintaining, or number one, having a positive body image, and then maintaining? What do you want to leave with teenage girls?
I think that learning how to look after your bodies is really, really important. So regular exercising is key, and the quicker you can get into that, the better. Learning a bit about nutrition and healthy eating, possibly learning how to do a bit of your own cooking is also really important. Again, like I've said about social media, trying to be mindful that what you're seeing is 99% of the time not going to be reality, and trying to avoid from as early an age as possible not to make comparisons, and actually working with what you've got rather than fighting against it. So treating your body with respect, giving it what it needs, and understand that, you know, you only get one body, and the earlier you look after it and the more care you take of it from an earlier age, hopefully, you know, the longer, the happier life you're going to lead.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Laura. Thanks for being with us. We hope girls will ask questions on the UIO webpage.
Great.
And we hope that you'll answer them for them.
Of course, I'd love to.
Okay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
That is a wrap for UIO. Thank you, girls, for listening, and thank you, God, for the opportunity to do the show. My prayer today is that each and every girl will become fully educated about what it means to embrace her body. Also, I pray that acceptance will be done with both mental and physical health in mind. Finally, I pray that there will be less focus on weight and more focus on health. However, that unhealthy weight will not be trivialized, and that each and every girl will find happiness in her own body, image, in her own space. These blessings I ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Tune in 2 weeks for some straight talk on hair, one of my favorite subjects. I'll be hanging out with my hairdresser of, let's say, a few years, the fabulous Joy Miller of the award-winning Junior Green Hair and Beauty in London. How cool is that? Join me then. Until then, hit me up on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. That's at Sonja D. Lewis. On thisandthat.co.uk/UIO-podcast. Tell me what you want to hear about right here and send your questions for Joy. Take care of you inside out, and remember, it is you I